Well, we have Chad Braungart with us here today. Chad, I appreciate your time. This is going to be kind of a treat because you and I connected through Twitter, and
Yeah.
frankly, there's only one other person besides you who's been on the show now because of Twitter.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and he was on recently. Actually, I'll have that link in the show notes too. But you probably know him. But it's been great. You and I were just chatting before I hit record that Twitter's become kind of a great place to connect and ask questions and do a bunch of things. So it's great to chat with you in person finally. I know we've been exchanging a lot of Twitter comments.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I have some wacky comments out there.
So the previous fellow is Tom Brickman.
Yep.
Yeah, if you know Tom. Yeah, so yeah, he was on the show recently. It was a great
Oh,
conversation,
nice.
a great chat. But
Yeah,
he's
I
got
was
a
in
lot
a
of stuff
Twitter
going
space.
on.
Yeah, he does. He's in Texas and Ohio. Yes, he seems to be doing quite a bit.
Yeah, and then he also still has his other business going on too. He's got he buys stuff at like thrift stores and whatever, and then resells them on eBay. So he's got kind of a storefront going on. So that was interesting. But
Yeah,
you are in New York, so let's
Yeah,
talk a little bit about you. Let's start things
sure.
off by how did you find your way into real estate investing?
Well, it was kind of by accident, really. Well, I wouldn't say accident, but I've been living in this apartment building. It was a 4 unit, and we actually lived there for me and my girlfriend for about three years, and there's no laundry in the facility, and we always had every other week I got to go and do laundry, and I kept talking to the landlady. I go, hey, do you mind putting laundry hookups in the basement? There's already hookups for water and electric. And I would drop off because I'd have to drop off checks to her house because she lived locally. And I'd drop off my check, and then I'd put like coupons for sales of washer dryers locally, just to drop hints. But it never stuck. And then finally, I was like, you know what? Maybe I can buy my own little house and and kind of get my own laundry, and I don't have to worry about this. So I had some money saved up. Since I graduated college, I was I had a lot of student loan debt, and I was not very financially savvy in college, and I kind of had to become an adult really quick. And so I was very frugal with my spending. I was able to save up enough to come up with a down payment. But essentially, I literally rode my bike. I was calling around about to local banks. I was like, hey, I want to buy a house. I had no idea how to buy a house or who to contact or anything. I was just completely clueless. And so she's like, okay. I met with a loan officer there to talk about funding and everything, and a realtor. Also, she goes, I'll bring one of my realtor friends, and you can talk with her, and blah blah blah. And this was in 2011. And it was like in the summer. I literally rode my bike with my backpack. I felt like a little kid. I'd show up to the bank, and so we go into one of the offices, and the realtor there, her name was Peggy, and I actually she's a good friend of mine. I still work with her to this day. We've done a number of projects and stuff, and so we're talking financing. I'm listening intently, and I was like, yeah, I was looking at some of these houses, these small little houses. 2011. I don't know if you remember, but it was prime time. It was a buyer's market, and you couldn't buy a house that you couldn't make money on, unlike today. And so I had no idea what I was doing, what to get into. I've mechanically inclined, but I've never done anything on a house before. But so the realtor there, she goes, it's like you've been saving money and everything. She goes, would you like the idea of living for free? I was like, living for free? And of course, me, trying to save all my money as much as possible. I'm like, how does that work? And so she goes, well, you live in an apartment, right? I go, yeah, I live in an apartment. What if you lived in another apartment and those other people paid you? I was like, okay, I was just so skeptical because I was just so new to this, but I was like, all right, let's look at some houses. And the first house I remember looking at, it was a studio apartment, and the guy who was kind of tending to the yard and everything, he had toilets in the back with plants in it. It was like, what is this place? And we go into his apartment, and he has like little dolls just kind of hanging from the ceiling, and it's just really dark and black painted walls, and there's no bed in there. He was sleeping on a sleeping bag on the floor, and I'm like, I don't know if this is for me. I go, this is
Hmm.
so out of my realm, I just kind of
Wow.
taken, and then she kind of like has like, okay, this is not a place that for you. I could already tell. And we looked at a number of other places, met with other, the listing agents, and we go through, and she's not your typical, realtor. She be very upfront and blunt, and that's why I love her. She's just very like, you know, what do you like? She tries to find your personality, and then she's trying to fit something to you. And
Mm.
you know, and I remember we were at a wedding, and she called me, and we were driving back from Connecticut, and so she calls me, and I end up answering the phone. He's like, "Hey, we need to see this house now, or else it's going to be gone." I was like, "Oh, okay." It's like, "Well, I'm like 3 hours away," and we saw the house at 6:30, and we met there. We walked through all three. It's a 3 unit apartment. And she goes, "You're going to get seller's concession. You can do 3.5% down. There's FHA, and you can get PMI waived after 10 years." So I ended up waiting a day. And then I was like, all right, I had no idea how to calculate numbers, what I needed to do. And I was like, all right, let's do this. And we ended up moving in. And I became a landlord that day, and I had we were in the 2 bedroom downstairs apartment, and then we had a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and a 2 bedroom, 1 bath above us. And they were existing tenants there for a while, and I never had any issues. Thankfully, well, any issues that weren't manageable. And
Hmm.
that's kind of how I stumbled into real estate. And when the next month rolled around, and then they were literally just dropped off checks in the mailbox, and I'm like, is this how it works? I go, this seems so easy. This seems so good to be true. And I started reading up, and that's one of the things I wish I did was reading more books, and then I found our local RIA to kind of get acquainted with other like-minded people in real estate, and it kind of took off from there. And I started buying more, and then we've house hacked a number of different places, and we're actually in our current house hack right now. It's actually two separate houses, and we already have the front house rented out, and we're not even finished yet because the market is just, there's so much demand for these areas. So,
Hmm.
and it's nice, you can practically live for free, and somebody else kind of takes care of your mortgage, insurance, and all that. So and the funny thing about that whole story about us buying that triplex was there was no laundry in the basement. There's no laundry in the units. So I actually, my brother used to be an HVAC technician, and so he kind of showed me what I needed to do. I was like, all right. So I tapped into like the gas lines, and I was able to run the gas lines and for the dryers, and there's already electric for down there, so I was able to just kind of hook it up, and that's kind of started our little journey of kind of renovating over time, and getting places up to a good standard, and then we move out and kind of do it again, you know,
Right.
rinse and repeat.
Well, that's a neat story. I mean, I think you were really lucky to run into a realtor that took the
Yeah,
time to kind of show you,
super.
kind of guide you through this.
Yeah, and she's for me, it's she's one that she always says, her mom always says it, that she doesn't let grass grow under her feet. And so she was always one to push, and I guess it worked well with my personality that I needed a little push from somebody else, and now we have managing 20 units right now. Well, it'll be 20 once they move in, but that's
Hmm.
20 units, and it's been quite a little whirlwind of some sacrifices that we've had to make, spending time on nights and weekends getting things done. But, and now, you get to a point where things start building up, and you find that you need to make systems, and you need to find the right people. So it becomes more of a people investment to find the right contractors, and cleaners to help you out. Because when you first start out, you have all the time in the world, you can do everything, but it comes a point where you have to part ways with your money to get your time back. And now I'm in the kind of that aspect of my investment. So, or
Right.
as you mentioned earlier, working on automating your repair requests. I've been jotting down how I'm doing things and how I can improve that. So it's definitely a learning experience. And there's a lot of other
Right.
people on Twitter that you know do probably 10 times as much as I do. But I'm happy with kind of what we built up. And I could consider myself financially independent. I could quit my job today and be just fine. But I kind of want to build up a little bit bigger nest egg before I make any of those decisions just yet.
Yeah. No, that's really neat. So how many properties you said you got 21 doors coming up, 21
Yeah,
doors?
20, 20,
How
20
many
doors.
buildings is that?
It's 11 buildings.
Okay. And you've done
Yeah.
this over how much time?
Yeah, so about since 2000, end of 2011 is when we first started.
Okay.
So it
So,
probably averages, a couple doors per year. So it's not the you read about some people who get 100 doors in 6 months. No, it's kind of been the slow and steady, and then the past few years, it just kind of realized that the cash flow just starts catching up with you. Like, wow, now I have cash to redeploy. And then
right.
it's compounding is it's fascinating. You don't realize it until it's there. And then you're like, wow, I could walk away from my job right now. It's amazing. So
Mhm.
it builds options for us. So I may not want to stay here, so it kind of gives us options. Maybe we could move somewhere else. So I've been working on systems to kind of automate things, and seeing as I know people around here, I can get contractors to kind of show up, kind of automate the whole maintenance request, repairs, turnovers. Turnovers is obviously the hardest one to kind of
Right.
automate, because there's a lot of checklist that you have to go through and find trustworthy people. If I were to continue self-managing from
Yeah.
afar, I would say. But yeah, it's definitely an investment that I do not regret one bit.
So, since you've kind of came into this in such a unique way, you probably have a very interesting perspective then. Like, what are a few of the things that you wished you would have known ahead of time that maybe the real estate investor didn't think of telling you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think Bigger Pockets was in its infancy at the time when I started, and I didn't know anything
Mhm.
about it. It's funny. I wish I could have found my original spreadsheet, and it involved 100% vacancy and 0% vacancy, and trying to see whether or not I could afford to pay for that triplex when I bought it. And I
Mhm.
went through the numbers, which I thought were accurate, until I realized that it's I was looking at it totally wrong. And that triplex, I hardly have any vacancy. Maybe a few days, just because somebody wanted to move in on the 6th, or mid month, which is nice because it actually allows you to get in there and get either myself or somebody else to come in there and do some repairs and painting, and check for making sure everything's up to speed, because we had 5 turnovers in end of May just recently. And handling that all at once made me realize that I need to really improve on my systems and what I do.
So you've mentioned a few times now that you've been implementing some systems and processes. Like, what are some of the automations or a few things that you've implemented that has made the biggest differences?
So I still do my own bookkeeping. I use Stessa, and
Sure. Yeah,
that.
the founder of Stess has been on the show. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a great platform to kind of combine all of to pre-categorize everything. And my CPA thanks me.
I bet.
I can do my taxes in less than 2 hours when I show up. And he's very grateful for he goes, you're the most organized person. I was like, all I do is take it from Stessa and make sure that everything's kind of accurate. I asked
Mhm.
them to make sure that I've classified them properly, and the bookkeeping is kind of a small part of what I do. The hardest part
Right.
about bookkeeping is when you have to do a renovation, you know, but usually most of the expenses are going to one property at that time. Yeah, but besides that, it's finding, using a platform is definitely the biggest one. And then sticking to processes and checklists. So I'll have checklists that I've created, and I've used Trello before,
Mm-hmm.
and I still use those. So I have a template for like a turnover, and I have a checklist that I go through, and it's like check the faucets for leaks, check underneath, flush the toilet, make sure it's not running, and then lights and all that, smoke detectors. So when I have the checklist, I don't have to think about anything. I just go through the list and just knock them
Good.
off, and I'm done. And my next plan is to implement somebody who can go in and who has some idea of how to do that. Maybe I have to show them how to do it, him or her, and then they can go in and then run through these checklists for me. And
Right.
that's be one thing that I can do, and then they can go through it. Oh, wait, we need to paint this. We need to, there's a leak here, and then from there, it's contacting the contractors to come in and scheduling to do the work. And usually, when you're turning over on the 31st, and new people are moving in on the first, it can be very hectic, especially when we did 5 turnovers that day. The cleaner
Right.
didn't show up to one of the houses, and they were there for 5 years, and it was pretty dirty. They had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of grease in the kitchen, so we ended up. It was 4 guys that are recent grads, and they moved into the house, and their parents helped them clean the house. So I gave them a cleaning credit, and
Mm-hmm.
everything else just kind of worked out. I stopped over because I actually didn't meet some of them face to face, so that's another thing that I've been working on. I've done a few virtual showings, so I have a 360-degree camera, so you can do a kind of a virtual walkthrough. Sometimes we get applicants who are out of state and they can't physically be there, and it's you could do a video tour with your phone, but it's not the same as having this 360 where they have little datum points where they can stop and then kind of look all the way around, look up, look down, see the
Mm-hmm.
flooring, and then they can physically see the layouts. And I did that with a tripod, and it works very well. Had a tenant who moved in from Texas in one of my properties, and then there's a lockbox there. He's able to get in on his own time once we receive payment. I never met the guy face to face. He was there, and he was in a dental program, and he moved out, and then he left the key in the box, and I show up, and place was so spotless. I mean, he was super clean. But yeah, it's the first time I've had a renter where I've never physically met before. So I'm thinking of ways that I mean, it doesn't always work that way. So being local, it's like, well, I mean, it's a minute away, so I'll just drive over there, so it's not too much of an inconvenience. But
Right.
having systems like that to remove yourself makes things so much easier. And the rent collection thing is definitely one where when I first started, it was cash or checks, and then Venmo and everything started coming around. And then I realized that Venmo has certain limitations, and you have to classify your Venmo transactions, and it found out it's much easier to have it all in one place. So all the new tenants, when I onboard them, they have to pay through our one platform that we use, and then I can see it automatically adds a late fee if they're not paying by the 5th. And I mean, for the most part, that's it in a nutshell. But it's the stress testing of having a lot of turnovers is what made me realize that I need to improve on things. If you can save 5 minutes here, but you do it repeatedly every week, that adds up to hours and days a year. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the next plan of what I'm trying to do to kind of automate things.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like we do a lot of the same things, actually. You said Trello. I use Asana
Asana,
for,
yep.
for the exact same thing. I've kind of went a little further now too, though, is that when I do have, I have a handy person in one of the towns, and I just invite them to the Asana tasks, so that Asana lets you communicate back and forth too. So on that
Oh,
task,
nice.
so if she finds some additional problems or whatever. So then it prevents the emails and the texts going back and forth. We keep the conversation to it's really kind of improved that part of the process. And like you, I have a template. Somebody moves out, I just copy and paste. Really, it's really beneficial. And it's interesting you bring up the lockbox too, because I've started resorting to this, and it, if anything has come out of the whole lockdowns and everything, it was me, us trying to adapt to a situation of how do you show these apartments now, and you can't really be there. So
exactly,
I did, and I've just kept going with it. A lockbox on the door. You for $30 you can buy a Wise camera, put that in there so that I can see people coming and going. But if somebody wants to see an apartment, I give them the key, the lockbox code. They go check it out themselves.
Oh, really?
At their convenience. So that we don't have to try to schedule a time or arrange anything. And then if they like the place, everything is done electronically, DocuSign and what have you. So
yeah, that's I've just done that too. All the e-leases. I used to sit down at a local coffee shop and walk through the lease, and I'm glad I did that, by the way, because I learned the foundations of what this lease was all about. And
right.
I know some people who've gone through lawyers to get a kind of a boilerplate lease, and I actually took my old landlady's lease, and then I was able to use leases from the closing documents, and I kind of merged them all together. And then after looking at numerous leases, you kind of see all this is something good to put in there. But the best thing that I learned was the networking was the crucial part of learning. That's one thing that I wish I would have done before I did anything. But I'm glad I actually jumped in first, and then looking back, I go, I could have done it, getting the cart before the horse. But having the property actually forced me to to do those things. So it's kind of a lighting a fire under me to kind of go and do those things instead of just, well, maybe I'll do this, and then you never do it. When you actually have this house, now it's like, well, I need to follow up what's code, what's lead-based paint, asbestos, with all these big scary mold, all these big scary things that you read about, and I'll have people reviewing the lease agreement online, and they'll be like, why do you send this lead-based disclosure? Is there something wrong with the house? And then you have to go through. It's like these houses were built 1900, 1920. They've been rehabbed. All the windows have been replaced. So most of the lead in these older houses is in the trim around the windows and the old wooden windows themselves. And then usually you paint the walls so you're encapsulating that. But we have to present that information that we don't have any documentation from like closing documents that we received when we bought the property of any lead-based hazards. It's just warning them that, hey, we don't know if there's any, but we have painted everything. All the windows have been replaced. And then when you take care of that, you usually don't have any issues, because Rochester is actually one of the places where they started this whole third-party lead testing for our certificate of occupancies. And they would come in, if they see any lead-based, like peeling paint, whether it's been rehabbed or not, you have to do third-party testing. And the testing is stringent. I don't know if you've ever been through it before. So I took a class on renovating to reduce lead-based hazards, and wearing your Tyvek suit and all that stuff. And the amount of lead it takes to fail a lead test, it could be if you have a dog and the dog's running around inside, there's enough lead in the dirt that you could fail a lead test. So from talking with a lot of property managers and landlords, they literally go and they would have the property cleaned professionally by somebody before they do the lead test. They use baby wipes and wipe all the windows down, all the trim, Swiffer the floors like a day before, even like right before the third party lead test. And they go you gotta pay them $150, $200 to have it tested, and then it confirms that okay, there's no lead in the house, and then you're good to go. So as long as you remove the main source, which is typically the windows, it's pretty easy to pass, and make sure you
Hmm.
don't have any peeling paint.
So do you typically avoid those older houses now, or is that something you'll still
No,
consider?
most of the houses here are my last house that we renovated last year was actually 170 years old. Yeah, it was a one-bedroom house. It's less than 800 square feet. So it's a small house. So
Hmm.
we had to, we did the whole house, and I have a bunch of photos that I've posted of the refinishing the floors, the bathroom, and they also smoked the last people that lived there smoked in there for God knows how long, probably like 40 years, because I
Hmm.
think they were fourth or fifth owners. And I don't know if you've ever had to rehab a house that somebody's been smoking in, but this is
Yes.
probably, yeah, we use the shellac based primer sealer. You got to do two coats and get the bunny suit and the mask and
Mhm.
everything. My girlfriend, she's an insurance agent. She loves to help me out, and she's there to help me with all the design aspects of it. And I'm there, to kind of do a lot of the grunt work. But lately, I've been doing a hybrid approach to renovating because I enjoy it, but I
Mhm.
only work on the things that I want to work on. So it's
Sure.
kitchens. I usually hire out most of the bathrooms, and then I do windows and flooring, and then I kind of leave kind of all the other things to the professionals and electric, plumbing, those things where I could get myself into trouble. I let
Mhm.
those people handle those things, and then I can focus on making sure that I'm doing things properly. And you get to buy some nice tools and work on it. And our latest one, it's literally right in our front house, so it's you can work on it in the evenings, and it's fun. Then you can post a bunch of
Mhm.
photos, and it becomes a hobby. It's a business, but it's definitely something that we enjoy doing. So it's and then how do you know somebody who's a real estate investor? They can't stop talking about real estate.
Right,
So
right.
it's definitely been a fun experience.
Yeah. And you also know somebody who does a lot of rehabs because if you go visit them, nothing has been done in their own house and everything's done in
Yeah. There's a few things I got to do. There's some patches in the ceiling in this
yeah.
office here I got to take care of. But
Yeah. I put it in a different window in my house I still need to sheetrock some of the area and trim it out and that's been sitting there like that for I bet you it's closing in on a year. So, but so you've been figuring this out as you go. Has there been any big mistakes you've made that you've identified, and what did you learn from it?
yeah, I think the my biggest mistake was, so we started getting into rehabs probably like five years ago, and I think my biggest regret is not keeping the properties. Yeah, we would have these meetups at one of the local bars, and we made friends with the bartender, and real estate meetups, and we're all talking about real estate, and over weeks she was always asking me these random questions. Hey, how do you get financing? How do I this and that? Her son's living in her house that she doesn't live in anymore, and then come to find out, she's like, "Hey, you mind if I call you if I got a question?" Yeah, sure. I give her my number. Probably a couple months goes by, and she calls me up, and she's like, "Hey, I know you from all the monthly meetups that you guys there, and I was wondering if you would want to buy my house." And then turns out that she was in pre-foreclosure, and we had to go through the banks to buy the remaining what she owed on the property. Her son wasn't paying the mortgage when she was giving him the money, and that kind of led to one thing, and
Mhm.
that was our first flip. And looking back, I go, that would have been a great rental. And then the next, few that we did, and I look back, I go, I should have kept them instead of selling it and paying the capital gains. And then second is probably not taking on too much at once, because like there's been years where you buy like a few properties, and then all of a sudden trying to get things up to speed, new tenants, orientation, that sort of thing. And when I didn't have systems in place, I was, you kind of, you have to burn through it. You try to figure it out instead of, if you have something written down for this situation, and then you make a checklist on how to handle it, or a flow chart, and then
Mhm.
you can map it out. And then, so all right, we have a leaky plumbing situation, and then all right, instead of just going and straight calling the plumber, you try to do some troubleshooting with the tenant. Sometimes it's difficult because certain tenants are not,
Mhm.
as savvy and technical savvy. They may not know, but others, I've had some where they actually fixed the plumbing was in the basement was flooding, and it turns out there was a tennis ball on one of the J traps in the basement. They were
Okay.
able to pull it out and kind of because we had just a heavy rainfall, and he sends me this message, and then all of a sudden 30 minutes later, hey, we found the tennis ball. It was in one of the Detroit traps and it was plugging everything up. But yeah, definitely taking on too much and just having a baseline of education for knowing the numbers, how to actually look at a rental property to know if that it will make money. That's one of the things that I've gotten much better at, obviously. And then I made a spreadsheet where it tracks the tax rates, so I can put in an assessed value or a purchase price, and then it readjusts the taxes, and I can
Mm,
prorate the insurance and everything, so I know pretty much exactly what the expenses are going to be.
right.
And then when you go see it, you can kind of get an idea how old are things, so you can jot down the age of everything and the remaining lifespan to give you an idea of how much you should set aside for capital improvements.
Mm,
So I'm actually a mechanical engineer, so I'm kind of I look at spreadsheets every day, so it's kind of something that I've been getting pretty good at. So you can you know where's the house, what's what do they want to sell it for, sort of thing, and then kind of figure out what the taxes are straight from the assessed value of where we are, and boom, I know the tax. I don't have to look up the taxes or anything, and then I can get a ballpark for insurance really quick, and
mhm.
um, and then we can go and check out the property. And I think one more thing that I wish I would have learned is buying in the right locations. Everybody, they're all location, location, location. I had one property, and it was I bought. I mean, I made money on it. The tenants were great, but it was such a hassle because it was like every day they're calling me, they're texting me, hey, something's not wrong, and it was they weren't very responsible individuals, and the place where it was is not in a safe area, so there was shootings all the time, right near them, and they were all cash paying tenants. They didn't. I don't think they had bank accounts, so they went to the check cashing places, and you'd have to stay on them because they would pay monthly, right? But I had to get them on a biweekly. Whenever they get their paycheck, I would come by and collect rent, and it was just so much time. I'd stop there every day, and then they want to chat about the faucet's the faucet's not working, and then you go and play with the faucet, and it's like, what? I don't know what's wrong with it, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's like,
Mhm.
well, it wasn't working when I was, so and then there's always they have a lot of excuses, and trying to formulate a plan to get them back on and caught up with rent is can be challenging. I've
Mhm.
succeeded with it in the past, sitting down with them and going through their what are they spending, what's your budget, and I was able to get one lady. She worked at a dentist office, but she was awful with her money and always paying late, and turns out that she was paying $330 a month for her cell phone bill. And I go, what, you're spending that much money on your cell phone? So I go, here, I got a great plan. Go down to another cheaper cell phone plan. Get a different cell phone provider and get one that's like $50 a month, and then set aside 200 of that 330, and then you can pay me on the back rent. And then she was able to catch up in a year, you know.
Mm.
And then, but things don't always work out, and there was some safety issues we had to, and then she kind of fell off the wagon, sort of.
Mhm.
I don't know exactly what happened, but she, we had to go through eviction and all that. But also there were some safety hazards they weren't letting me know about. Some of the stairs were collapsing, and stairs are collapsing. So I have the handyman come over, and he's like, I don't know how they're getting upstairs. But this is not safe. So I told him, I was like, well, we gotta fix this, and then they wouldn't let us in. So it became that issue. And so definitely buying in the right location and having, quality tenants is, critical to, keep staying sane in this business, I would say. If you're dealing with a lot of challenging areas. For me, I'm speaking from my experience. If I was doing this full time, I think it would be a little easier because you have a lot more volume and you have a bit more of the systems in place. I know a lot of the property managers who manage in those locations. It's a volume play, so you're not worrying about the little onesie twosie things. You're just worrying about the core tenant base and making sure that they're paying, and then you're always going to have the delinquent payments in that. And that's just part of the business. So you kind of
Right.
underwrite based on that.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about different areas. A buddy of mine had a place in Indianapolis, and we were in the city once, and we drove over there, and talking about unsafe, there were bullet holes in the front window. Jeepers. Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, no, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you jumping on and doing this
Yeah,
here
no
with me.
problem.
I want to remind everybody again, find him on Twitter at LandlordRev. And I'll make sure to have that direct link in the show notes. But I think I might have warned you, Chad, that I got a series of rapid fire
Yep.
questions. You want to
Yep,
tackle
you
them?
did. Sure.
Okay. So with your experience, jumping head first into this, you cannot say Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you're familiar with Wayne's World, it's like you can't play Stairway to Heaven in a guitar shop. You can't say that book. What book
Yeah.
would you recommend somebody start with?
Well, for me personally, it was actually the 10X rule from Grant
Grant
Cardone.
Cardone. Yeah.
He can kind of rub people the wrong way, but for me, it was just kind of, don't feel sorry for your situation. Everybody, you may not be born with a silver spoon by any means. My parents were never wealthy, and I was able to build up a decent amount of wealth, and I'm very thankful for it. But it's hard work, and the only person that's really going to be, doing it is you. You have either it's you or you have to find somebody who can help you. So it's networking and just doing it. Don't think about it. Just do it, and it kind of helped me mentally to kind of change my mindset. That book. So it's definitely kind of a more of a motivational book, I would say, than anything, and that's what kind of kept me going with real estate.
Sure. So, this might be an interesting one. What real estate investing myth have you heard that you just feel like you got to debunk? It's like
investing myth. Oh, the late night toilet call that somebody's got a plugged toilet. I've never had one before. I've talked with one of a friend. He's a friend now, but he manages something like 700 units, and he goes, I may have one that I can remember, but there's not many people really using the bathroom, 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's and then those late night calls that you're always, you're always fixing something. Yeah, you might be, but if you have the people there, it's not a lot of time to send a quick text to a plumber and then have them go out and you forward them the work order, and then you give them the tenant number, and then they schedule it out, and then I'm kind of, it becomes more of a passive until I get the pictures and the photo and the confirmation that they actually did the work, and then I pay them, and rinse and repeat. So it's that late night toilet plugging. Yeah, I've never had that yet.
well,
One day.
I can say that it has happened to me, but it
Oh,
was
really?
it was a drastic experience, and I don't want to scare people
Oh,
off
geez.
because I think it ended up being the sewer line collapsed to the road.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh, geez.
it happened like on Thanksgiving. Like it was like on a terrible, it was like a holiday on the weekend.
Yeah.
The sewer
Oh,
pipe
boy.
collapsed, and now there's sewage coming into the basement.
Jeez.
It was a terrible
Oh,
experience. But
that's rough.
I don't want to freak everybody out, but I mean it happened that one time. It was
Oh, yeah, that's rough. Now you know why Thanksgiving they actually call it Brown Thursday. That's what plumbers call it. At least the ones locally.
there you go.
as the plumbing gets overworked.
Well, what's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
I would say it's just getting started, and you're never going to have all the information. It's just
Right.
finding enough, getting comfortable with a certain amount of risk, and then moving forward, and then managing things as they pop up. The nice thing about real estate is even if you buy it, the numbers look good on paper. You may have to do a lot of work up front. You may not make money the first couple of years, but over the long haul, it will. As long as you're not buying in a bad location or a depreciating market where the population is going down, you should be all right. And I say should, but management always comes into play on that.
Well, let's go the flip of the coin. What's the worst piece of business advice you've received?
Worst piece of advice. It's doing everything yourself, trying to do everything yourself. And I've talked with some who are big proponents of, why would you pay that guy this much? I can do it for half the price. And then it's like, well, I might be spending 4 hours on a weeknight when I can, be spending time with friends or family. So that $200 that I could have paid somebody to take care of, and if they're proficient at it, they're going to get it done quick so they can get paid. I don't care how long it takes, I'm going to pay them. So it's, doing everything yourself. That's when I first started, that was kind of my thing, is I'm going to do everything, try to figure everything out, which I don't regret, but now I look back and I go, I should have hired out more as I was growing.
That's one of those things that I still struggle with, and I keep losing sight of it for some stupid reason because, I have full intentions of taking care of some of this stuff myself. And then you get a vacant unit, and then I think it's going to take me a weekend. Next thing you know, it's been 2 months to get it completely done. And now I missed out on the rent for 2 months instead of just hiring somebody, getting it done. And, because,
exactly.
It's kind of silly, really, when you think about it.
It is. Yeah. It's you don't think about it though at the time. It's like, well, right. I can do this. It'll only take this much, but life kind of gets in the way of things.
Yeah. If you could go back into time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
If I can give one piece of advice, if I go back in time, I go buy more. I would have bought more when I first started. I think that was. I think I would have done that.
And if people are listening to this, you can probably hear the trend. I hear that is probably the number one response that I get: buy more and hold more. That's what I keep getting. So, well, Chad, is there a question or concept you wished we would have covered here tonight?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. Well, I know this was a bit impromptu and I kind of put you on the spot, but this was great. I enjoyed this conversation quite a bit. So again, it's Landlord Rev, and I'll make sure to have that link in the show notes, but I hope you'll consider coming back sometime, and
definitely.
We tried to organize a roundtable here tonight, and I still like to try that sometimes. So I hope you'll join me for that one of these days.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.